Having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.
Face to face with the U.S. president in his house, Mark Carney tells Donald Trump, Canada is not for sale. Tonight, assessing the highly anticipated visit, the performances, the promises, the path ahead.
We had what I would describe as wide-ranging and very constructive discussions.
The answer on Canadian sovereignty, short and sweet, but the talks on tariffs have just begun. From here in Rome, on the eve of the papal conclave, an unpredictable election.
You can find a candidate who is really good on paper, but if he doesn't have charisma, can he stand up to the legacy of Pope Francis?
And India fires missiles into Pakistan and Pakistan-controlled Kashmir. Escalating tensions in two countries with nuclear weapons.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault in Rome.
Thanks for joining us. The reason we're here is lit up behind me. That is the Vatican, where a decision with global implications will soon be made. The Conclave of Cardinals will elect a new pope, news of which will come with white smoke wafting for all to see. But that dramatic story is yet to unfold. So let's start tonight with another one closer to home. A highly anticipated meeting in Washington, a first big test for Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney sitting down with U.S. President Donald Trump. Carney campaigned on the pitch. He was the one for the job, on the trade war, on Canadian sovereignty, and on the fractured relationship with Canada's closest ally. Publicly, the tone between the leaders was friendly, though no concrete details have been announced. Ashley Burke shows us how the day unfolded.
A friendly greeting from a president who is not always known for them. The Prime Minister face-to-face with Donald Trump in the White House, a week after winning the election on a promise to take on Trump and win.
That was probably the greatest thing that happened to him, but I can't take full credit.
Mark Carney thanking Trump for having him.
You're a transformational president, focus on the economy.
But minutes later came a question about Trump's desire to make Canada the 51st state.
I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn lines, when you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said, that's the way it was meant to be.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
It's true.
We're sitting in one right now.
Carney dismissing the idea to Trump's face.
Having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together.
Never say never. Never say never.
At times, Carney didn't hide his facial expressions. And they had disagreements on trade, too. Trump saying there's nothing Carney could say that would make him lift tariffs.
Why not?
Just the way it is. Sure, I would. But this is not necessarily a one-day deal. This is over a period of time.
While Trump took aim at Carney's predecessor, he didn't go after Canada's current prime minister.
I think Canada chose a very talented person, a very good person.
After they went on to meet behind closed doors, Carney announced at the embassy they secured a commitment to negotiate a new trade deal, but didn't give details.
I'm not trying to suggest at any respect that we can have one meeting and everything's changed, but now we are engaged.
Carney said he had a constructive and wide-ranging discussion with Trump, including pressing him to lift tariffs on Canada, but he didn't know when that could happen, saying the timing is up to Trump. He says they both agreed to keep talking and meet again in person at the G7 in Alberta next month. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Washington.
All right, let's bring in Katie Simpson from the lawn of the White House. So, Katie, how does Donald Trump seem to be responding to that meeting?
The initial reaction seems to be positive, Adrian, and that is something given how volatile U.S. President Donald Trump can be. Listen to what he told reporters hours after his meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney at a separate event in the White House.
Calling him Governor Carney. Now, I haven't done that yet, and maybe I won't. I did have a lot of fun with Trudeau, but I think this is a big step up. It's a good step up for Canada. I watched very closely. I thought he did really terrifically in the debates. I like him. You know, he's a nice man. We get along very well. We had a great meeting today.
The tone toward Carney seems to be more respectful, and it's a change in recent months. But remember, Trump still poses an existential threat, even if he's more complimentary or smiling. His trade policy is based on killing jobs in foreign countries in order to bring them to the United States. Canada is a target, specifically the Canadian auto sector, and he openly talked about it in that meeting with Mark Carney.
All right, Katie Simpson in D.C., thank you. All kinds of Canadian workers are already feeling the effects of Trump's trade war. Anis Haidari with what Canadian business leaders are taking away from this first meeting.
We don't really want cars from Canada.
Blunt messaging from Donald Trump, but not a new message. And no shift in gear on tariffs. Not a surprise to many in Canada's auto industry.
Donald Trump's not going to relent on tariffs in front of cameras in the Oval Office in the first meeting.
But business groups say progress on trade policy now seems possible.
I think what we saw today, what we hoped for anyways, was respectful and serious. And I think we saw both of those things, if not, dare we say, a bit of a friendly tone.
Tariffs are still in place, though, still putting a chill in Canadian business. 25% tariffs on steel, aluminum, and on the non-U.S. content in Canadian-assembled cars.
We don't want Canadian steel, and we don't want Canadian aluminum and various other things because we want to be able to do it ourselves.
That remains a tough goal, say Canadian companies.
His country still needs 26 million tons of steel to be imported into his country. In other words, he's about twice Canada's entire steel production shy of being self-sufficient.
And so, despite positive reactions to today's meeting, for many workers, no relief yet.
We're seeing layoffs pile up. We're into the high hundreds of layoffs at this moment, with more to come.
Business leaders say one good meeting doesn't change enough.
Investing in infrastructure to reach other markets and great trading partners who want to do business with us is critical.
The latest numbers from Statistics Canada do show Canadian exports to the U.S. dropped by more than 6.5% back in March. Exports to other countries, they almost made up for it. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
Among those watching every moment of that Oval Office chat, senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong. So, Peter, what stood out to you?
Yeah, look, there's a couple of small but important shifts that just might open up the possibility of a framework going forward. You know, one of the problems throughout this has been just the sprawling nature of the complaints, everything from autos to steel to energy to the 51st state. So it's hard to really see what an exit ramp might look like. So take this and ask yourself, is there some kind of a potential for at least a path forward here?
Is USMCA dead?
No, it was actually very effective, and it's still very effective, but people have to follow it. So, you know, that's been a problem.
Now, Adrian, you got to squint to kind of see how the USMCA or CUSMA could emerge as the path that leads to some kind of a trade deal here. But look, it's at least a possible framework, and that's just not something that was really in play even as of this morning.
And I gather, Peter, you noticed something too about Trump's trade deficit numbers.
I did, and this might be even more subtle than the last, but when Trump talks about subsidizing Canada to the tune of $200 billion, he's talking there about the trade surplus. And yes, there is one. It's closer to $60 billion, mostly because we sell American refineries a ton of oil. And Canadians have tried to correct those numbers to no avail. But listen to how Trump framed it today.
You know, it's not fair. But why are we subsidizing Canada $200 billion a year, or whatever the number might be? It's a very substantial number.
Whatever the number might be. It's small, but at least we're working towards working off the same set of facts. And it's two small examples of incremental progress that could pay off down the road.
All right, Peter Armstrong in Washington, thank you. Back in Ottawa, the Conservative caucus met today on the heels of the party's election loss. As Kate McKenna shows us, there was a lot on the agenda.
Pierre Poilievre back on Parliament Hill, leading his first caucus meeting since the election, even though he won't be sitting as an MP right away.
Back to work at caucus today after the most recent election. Obviously, we didn't come out on top, and that's disappointing. But there is a lot to be thankful for.
Poilievre defended the party's campaign, but says some changes are coming.
But there's more to do. We have to enlarge our team, grow our support, build on our caucus strengths.
The Conservatives made gains, but Poilievre lost his seat. He'll run again soon in an Alberta by-election, and so far, his team has his back.
I lost by 9 votes in 2011, and I came back in 15. I'm here since then, and I think we take a big lesson of humility when that happens.
It was an 8-hour closed-door caucus meeting, which included a vote on who will take over for Poilievre as interim opposition leader.
I'll be taking over the parliamentary leadership duties of the caucus until Mr. Poilievre rejoins us in the House.
Other topics included what worked and what didn't during the campaign.
This is my 4th election, and every time we've returned, we always have a fulsome discussion on what went on during the campaign.
We're behind Pierre Poilievre, and obviously as he said, we have some lessons to learn from the campaign.
They also voted to adopt the Reform Act, a piece of legislation that allows for caucus members to trigger a leadership review down the road if support for Poilievre wanes. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Breaking tonight, India has launched a military operation on sites in Pakistan and in part of the Kashmir region Pakistan controls. This follows last month's deadly attack on tourists in India-controlled Kashmir. South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji is in Mumbai. So Salima, what more at this point do we know about the strikes?
Well, Adrian, people here in India and also in Pakistan are just waking up to this news of what many people say was inevitable. Military strikes, like you said, exactly 2 weeks after an attack in Indian-controlled Kashmir, where militants actually targeted tourists and killed 26 men. Now, India's defense ministry released a statement basically calling this a targeted attack on 9 sites in Pakistan, as well as on Pakistan's side of disputed Kashmir, confined, New Delhi says, to infrastructure used by militants. None of the sites, the statement stresses, are Pakistani military facilities. And the statement goes on to say that India's actions have been focused, measured, and non-escalatory, and that India has demonstrated what officials here call considerable restraint in selecting the targets and in the method of execution. And India's army also tweeted a message, "Justice is served." Now, Pakistani security officials, on the other hand, say the strikes have killed at least 8 people, although it is a fluid situation. That total includes at least 2 children, and they are still counting the injured.
Salima, undoubtedly we're talking about a big escalation. What are the concerns going forward?
Well, there's always a concern here in any conflict regarding these 2 sworn enemies, of course, both nuclear powers who have been fighting over disputed Kashmir for nearly 80 years now, that this could spiral into an all-out war that is really difficult to contain. Islamabad has repeatedly denied that they were involved in the militant attack, and India hasn't provided any evidence publicly for its claims that Pakistan backed the attack. And we're already seeing Islamabad's retaliation to the military strikes. Pakistan's prime minister has called the strikes cowardly. He says his country is responding forcefully to what he calls an act of war. And Pakistani officials say several Indian planes have already been shot down, as well as a drone, and multiple gunfire exchanges have been seen along the line of control, the border contested that separates this region.
All right, well, the world will be watching. Salima Shivji in Mumbai, thank you. Now to the story that brought us to Vatican City, the conclave to choose the next pope. Cardinals gathered this morning for a final congregation where individual clerics could speak about their vision for a global faith that counts 1.4 billion people in its fold. Their viewpoints informed by the migrant crisis, global conflicts, and the fact that many have come here from the continents of Asia and Africa. The conclave starts on Wednesday behind the closed doors of the Sistine Chapel. Now, Juanita Taylor is here in Rome, and she has been asking people about their expectations for the successor to Pope Francis. In a way, it seems it all depends on where they're coming from.
There's a sense of anticipation here in Rome. This morning, the College of Cardinals met for the last time before voting begins, and people from around the world have come to find out who they will pick, including Canadians.
I do want a Catholic Italian Pope, though.
I want to see a Catholic church where I'm proud to be a member of, and that means that we're all loved and that we're all equal.
There were 133 cardinals from 71 countries voting, mostly selected by Francis himself, the most diverse ever, like this cardinal from Chile. He says he's grateful to be here and is excited to participate in the conclave. Austin Ivory wrote 2 biographies of Pope Francis.
And I think the world is looking for a peacemaker, a prophet, somebody who embodies, who's a friend of the poor, who is a prophetic sign of hope in a world which badly needs it.
But there is also a feeling of expectation, uncertainty.
I want to see action. We Indigenous people are done with words.
This residential school survivor says the next pope needs to do more for Indigenous people, including releasing archival records from that legacy.
Well, I want the pope that's going to be chosen to not have a record of any allegations of child sexual abuse. I want him to have a clean slate.
This Dene elder led a delegation from the Northwest Territories to the Vatican to meet with Francis in 2022 and ask for an apology for the harms the church caused.
He really was very compassionate.
Antoine is optimistic the next pope will, like Francis, be engaging.
Someone that could be able to work with our people.
And for a lot of people in Canada's north, Pope Francis did make a big impact.
So, Juanita, I'm curious. There have been meetings all this week with the Cardinals. Is there any indication that some of the priorities that matter to Pope Francis will continue to be priorities for the church?
Yeah, the Vatican said the Cardinals held their last meeting earlier today, and a lot of the issues Pope Francis worked on, like the fight against abuse and a commitment to peace, are still deeply felt and shared. Adrienne?
All right, Juanita Taylor in Rome. Now, let's bring in CBC News' Vatican analyst, David Perlich. So, David, we know that the Cardinals will go under lock and key very soon. We don't have a clue what's about to happen in there in the Sistine Chapel, but I gather there can be a bit of a pattern to how the voting goes.
There certainly can. So you're not supposed to ever talk about what goes on in a conclave. You're not supposed to bring out numbers, but it happens. And over time, diaries have been published, things have been leaked to journalists, and Pope Francis actually put it in one of his autobiographies. So the way it tends to work, in the first ballot, you can expect 2 or 3, sometimes 4 candidates to get a lot of votes. Cardinals get a lot of votes. And then there are a large number of cardinals who'll get 2 or 3 or 4 votes. In the next ballot, the big question is, where do those smaller blocks of votes go? If they start moving all in one direction, then there's sort of an obvious front runner and somebody who could ride the wave to the 2/3 majority. But if they start to diffuse amongst the other candidates, and in a further vote that doesn't become more apparent and there is no obvious front runner, that's when you can certainly be in for a longer conclave.
And very briefly, I mean, in a few days when there is a new pope, presumably, what will he be facing?
I think primarily what we're hearing is the state of the world, the geopolitical situation, war, conflict, questions about borders, migrants, refugees. And then within the church itself, it's about Francis's legacy. It's about the notion of the synod and the inclusion of the laity into the Catholic Church in its decision-making process, which is controversial. And the new pope will have to deal with the legacy of that within the church.
Okay, David Perlich, thanks very much. Looking forward to being with you this week.
My pleasure.
Now, surprises are not unheard of at papal conclaves, but this year the vote will be even more unpredictable. We'll break down why later in the hour. Now, we want to correct a story we brought you last night. We misreported the number of hostages in Gaza. There are, in fact, 59 hostages remaining. Back in Canada, there was a new round of cross-examination today in the sexual assault trial of 5 former World Junior hockey players. What was said in testimony and what is next in the case. One of America's busiest airports loses communication with inbound planes.
When you're a controller, you want to be in control. When you take that away, it can be very traumatic.
The cause of the chaos at Newark International. And a Canadian pilot's survival story after crashing off the coast of Mexico.
Just started swimming.
We're back in 2. search for two young children continues in Nova Scotia for a fifth straight day. A brother and sister, ages 4 and 6, were reported missing from near their home last Friday. Officials say search and rescue crews remain optimistic. The sex assault trial of 5 former World Junior Hockey players continued with the cross-examination of the complainant. Katie Nicholson on some of the exchanges and what they might indicate about the defense, and a warning: this story does contain some language some may find disturbing.
What do we want? Justice!
Outside the courthouse, support for EM, the woman at the center of the case whose name is protected by a publication ban. Inside, tough questions as defense lawyer David Humphrey pushed back on her narrative. Humphrey represents Michael McLeod, one of 5 former Canadian World Junior Hockey players charged with sexually assaulting EM in June of 2018. They've all pleaded not guilty. Humphrey floated it was EM who suggested McLeod invite his friends to his hotel room because she was interested in having some sexual interactions with them. I suggest you said something like, "Get some of those guys back here, I want to have a wild night," he said. EM responded, "That doesn't sound like something I would say, and I don't remember saying those words."
The counter narrative has to be, well, she wanted the other people to be there, and they're clearly trying to build on that.
Ingrid Grant is a Toronto-based criminal defense lawyer. She isn't involved in the case, but says this counter-narrative could be part of the defense strategy, especially given how many people were allegedly in the room.
So there's going to have to be an explanation for that. And there's going to have to be an explanation that doesn't suggest that, she was not consenting to this.
Grant cautions questions alone aren't evidence, and juries are told questions aren't evidence. Humphrey also suggested EM encouraged the men to have sex with her, and that she called them, quote, pussies when they did not engage. EM said she did not remember that, and it didn't sound like something she would say. EM likely has more long days of cross-examination ahead from the lawyers representing the other 4 accused in the case. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, London, Ontario.
There are calls for a complete overhaul after a turbulent week at Newark International Airport.
We need to build a brand new air traffic control system.
What's behind some massive glitches? The conclave is set to begin in hours, but the race to become the next pope is still wide open.
The Catholic Church in this moment is at a crossroads.
The top contenders and the next steps. Plus, our panel takes a closer look at that critical meeting between Donald Trump and Mark Carney.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. There is growing frustration tonight after days of delays and flight cancellations at Newark International Airport in New Jersey. As Chris Reyes reports, it dates back to a frightening incident last week that's left some flights briefly flying blind.
An April 28th voice recording from Newark, New Jersey's air traffic control. Nothing any passenger wants to hear.
Approach lost all their radars. 3 of the 4 radar screens went black, and they have no frequencies.
Confirmation now from the union. Controllers lost radar and communication with planes under their supervision. One source told several news outlets it lasted 90 seconds. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said 30 seconds. Either way, a nightmare situation, says this retired air traffic controller who worked on 9/11.
When you're a controller, you want to be in control. When you take that away, it can be very traumatic.
So traumatic, those controllers have now taken medical leave. Since then, delays and cancellations have been piling up at Newark by the hundreds, choking the 14th busiest airport in the U.S. and affecting flights across the country and in Canada. The FAA has issued a ground delay and warned passengers they could be waiting 4 hours extra for takeoff.
I was delayed getting in here on United, and I'm getting delayed getting out of here on JetBlue. I'm just a little annoyed because I've never been delayed so much in my life.
And the problems run deeper. In recent weeks, United Airlines CEO said 20% of the controllers responsible for the airport walked out. Complaints include stress and aging infrastructure.
We see that the whole system needs to be redone. We need to build a brand new air traffic control system.
Duffy said he'll announce that plan on Thursday. In the short term, He's negotiating with airlines to reduce Newark's capacity altogether. Krish Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Now, let's break down the news shaping our world. A White House face-to-face with high stakes for Canada. Prime Minister Mark Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump meet in person for tense talks on trade, tariffs, and Canada's sovereignty.
It's not for sale, won't be for sale, ever.
We'll break down the key moments, but first. The conclave's choice for Pope is usually hard to predict, but with more cardinals from more countries, this conclave is even more of a wild card.
Anyone could walk out on the balcony.
There isn't a clear front-runner to be the next pontiff, but there are possible contenders. Yet given the diversity in the conclave, it could be like no other. Wander the streets of Rome, and it doesn't take long to find people with their favorite picks for Pope.
Cardinale zuppi.
Pizza balla.
Cardinal tagle.
Speculation isn't new, it happens every conclave, but the wisdom of the crowds isn't always wise. Remember, Pope Francis, or Cardinal Bergoglio, as he was known back then, wasn't really considered a papal front-runner in 2013. So is it all set to be unpredictable again?
Every conclave is unpredictable.
In the 12 years since Pope Francis first appeared on that balcony overlooking St. Peter's Square, he made some changes that leave the conclave unfolding now a little bit mysterious.
I think this is a conclave where it's a wide open race. And I think because of that, anyone can walk out on the balcony.
The new pope will be chosen by cardinal electors. Those are cardinals under the age of 80, and I'm going to hit you with another 80. 80% of them were appointed by Pope Francis, which means 8 out of the 10 men locked in the Sistine Chapel have never done this before. Let's look at the numbers. It's crowded, with 133 of them going in there, 18 more than last time. And it's way more international, 71 countries represented versus the 48 that chose Pope Francis. Italian cardinals had a quarter of the say in 2013, but their numbers have gone down, while cardinals representing Asia and Africa have gone up. And sure, Pope Francis picked many who would be in that room, but don't think this means they're necessarily looking for another progressive pope, Francis 2.0.
It's very difficult, even for a pope, to really be able to manage once he's dead what's going to happen after him.
There are more US-oriented, more China-oriented. There are people coming from the north, from the south, from the west, from the east. So there is a huge variety among the cardinals created by Pope Francis.
Just getting all these cardinals here?
It is a logistical nightmare.
Consider this. They don't all speak the same language. Many have never laid eyes on each other and have no idea where the others stand on the big issues facing the church. It's also new. They've unusually asked for name badges.
So they asked indeed to have a badge in order to know each other, and in the badge it is written the name, the country, also if they are the status, if they are electors or not. Yeah, it's like a party.
They will have been wearing those badges in meetings known as general congregations, where they give speeches, size each other up, figure out the profiles of their fellow cardinals. Critical work before going under lock and key.
The Catholic Church in this moment is at a crossroads. There's tremendous momentum from the Francis papacy of opening the church up to the modern world. This was a pope that was a reformer, and he wanted the church to become more inclusive and more welcoming. And the cardinals are having to debate now whether or not they want to continue on that path or perhaps initiate some sort of course correction.
So we don't know who the cardinals will pick as the best man for that job, but that doesn't stop the speculation. Enter the Vatican journalist for a little Italian lesson.
Papabile.
Papabile.
Papabile is the term that we use in Italy to refer to those who are likely candidates to become pope.
And once you start hearing certain names often enough, those of us who cover this institution for a living, we say, aha, this is a person that someone has identified as a potential pope. These are not lists made by the cardinals themselves, they're created by those of us on the outside.
There's no limit on papabile identified each conclave, and names vary, but read enough of the news coverage and some repeat. Since most popes have been Italian, let's start with them.
Pope Francis's number 2 official was Cardinal Pietro Parolin. If we're looking for something to prove how much of a candidate he is, there have been numerous attacks in the media and by some of the cardinals against this person, saying that he's too old and too sick to have this role. When that happens, you know that you got to pay attention.
Cardinal Pizzaballa, he's the patriarch in Jerusalem. He's lived most of his life in the Middle East, and I think in this moment in time, people see that as attractive. And then, of course, Cardinal Zuppi from Bologna, who's the head of the Italian Bishops' Conference.
Lots of choices beyond Italy.
The French Archbishop of Marseille, Jean-Marc Aveline, the Spaniard, Lopez Romero, and also an American, Robert Francis Prevost, who is a very pragmatic guy, very good in listening.
Then there's a Filipino cardinal, Cardinal Tagle. I'll come back to him in a second. Lots of names to follow. That makes it attractive for betting, but that's against the rules here in Italy when it comes to choosing pope. So people are getting creative. Right now, more than 90,000 people are playing a game called Fanta Papa. Get it? Like fantasy football? The online game lets you draft a team made up of the papabile you think have the best odds. Points are scored each time a pick is mentioned in the media, and bonuses are handed out for correctly guessing things like the new pope's language and papal name. And if the cardinal you place as your team captain ends up on the balcony, there's no money in it, just bragging rights until the next conclave. Back to Cardinal Tagle. One of the Fanta Papa co-creators chose him as their captain. Is that a sign? He would be the first Asian pope, and why not, after the first Latin American pope? At this gathering at the Pontifical Filipino College in Rome, Tagle is the name on everyone's mind.
When he talks to you, even if it's the first time that you met him, he really speaks to you personally.
Dubbed the Asian Francis and hailing from a country where around 80% of the population identifies as Catholic, his supporters describe him as down to earth. An image helped along by viral videos like this one, Cardinal Tagle performing a rendition of John Lennon's Imagine.
I'm chronically online, so I also see on TikTok that many young people that would want him to become the next pope. In the TikTok comment sections, they call him the Philly Pope.
Outward campaigning for cardinals is strongly discouraged, but social media is unstoppable.
Are you guys watching the NFL draft?
No, we're watching the Pope draft.
I think it's fair to say that this is the first TikTok conclave.
We got a brand new season of the Pope games coming out.
The amount of interest, probably thanks to the movie Conclave that we've seen in this specific moment in time here, is kind of remarkable.
Does any of that register with the men in red?
I will say that cardinals right now are on social media. They're not only praying and discerning, they're also scrolling. They're looking at how this is being represented, and they're thinking about how do we capture this moment, this attention for the church, and try and make it live beyond just this simple moment.
Safe to assume they've been scrolling, but heading into the Sistine Chapel means giving up their phones.
I talked to one cardinal the other day who said the thing he was dreading most was having to give up his iPad. So this is a reality that, you know, most people can relate to, whether or not you're inside the Sistine Chapel or outside of it.
When can these cardinals reunite with their devices? Another mystery. All we on the outside can do is watch for the white smoke.
How long it takes for the smoke to come out is going to be very telling.
If the conclave would last longer, the impression would be of a divided church and of conflicts exploding within the Sistine Chapel.
The last two popes both emerged by the second day, but it's important to remember they were decided by a very different College of Cardinals, and Pope Francis's legacy will be looming large.
You can find a candidate who is really good on paper, but if he doesn't have charisma, can he stand up to the legacy of Pope Francis? These are the questions that the cardinals are asking themselves right now, and they're going to have to understand that they might be looking for a unicorn.
There's one thing we can bet on: the life of the man who enters wearing red and leaves wearing white will never be the same. And it all gets underway tomorrow. You can join me for special coverage on CBC News Network and wherever you stream CBC News, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern. I sat down earlier today with Canadian Cardinal Michael Carney for his last interview before preparing to cast his vote in the conclave. Here's a preview of that conversation.
This is your first conclave.
It is.
And I wonder how you're feeling about the work ahead of you, the choice ahead of you.
I wouldn't call it work. We've done the work. Now we have to choose. But it's not, the work was these last 10 days or so of listening and reflecting and praying and also grieving, like coming to grips with the fact that Pope Francis is with us, but in another way. And dealing with our sorrow, gratitude, hopes. But now all this translates into a vote, yes, right.
You can see the rest of that conversation Wednesday on The National. Coming up, our team's key takeaways from the Trump-Carney meeting.
Everybody wondered, would this all somehow implode today?
The comments that stood out most, next. There was a lot riding on this critical meeting at the White House.
This is a very friendly conversation, but we want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada.
So did Prime Minister Mark Carney accomplish what he set out to do, and what comes next? Catherine Cullen is in Ottawa, Paul Hunter in Washington. So a lot of people were watching that Oval Office meeting very closely, but I want to know what you saw as you watched. We asked both of you to pick a moment. So Catherine, why don't we start with your pick?
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace, that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the President just said, is with respect to our own security.
So, Catherine, from your vantage point in Ottawa, why that moment?
Well, before they even walked into the Oval Office, Adrian, it was clear that this was the moment that was going to require the most political deftness from Mark Carney. When Donald Trump questions Canada's sovereignty, what is the right amount of pushback? Too much, you risk provoking Trump in the Oval Office, and Volodymyr Zelensky showed us how bad it can be when Trump loses his cool. But if Carney had just sat back, that certainly wouldn't have lived up to the elbows up tone from the campaign he just ran. So to try to walk the right line, he tried to speak Trump's language, talking about real estate. He tried to use a bit of humor there too, talking about the owners of Canada. We saw that humor again a bit later when Trump said about the 51st state, "We'll never say never." And Carney kind of wiggled his eyebrows. He smiled while mouthing, "Never, never, never." So trying to push back, but trying to diffuse the tension, though it is worth noting that while Carney got that pushback in, it didn't seem to change Trump's mind.
Okay, noted. Paul, let's watch what stood out to you as our Washington correspondent.
See, the conflict is, and this is very friendly. We're not. This is not going to be like we had another little blow up with somebody else. That was a much different. This is a very friendly conversation, but we want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada, and we put tariffs on cars from Canada. And at a certain point, it won't make economic sense for Canada to build those cars.
Okay, it's a consistent view. Take us through what you saw there, Paul.
Yeah, well, Catherine mentioned Zelensky. The Zelensky Oval Office meetup really was the kind of low bar for how these things can go. So everybody wondered, would this all somehow implode today, or would the vibe be okay? And look, spoiler alert here, by and large, it was okay. Trump opened with all kinds of friendly tone. You ran a great campaign, greatest political comeback in history, we got lots in common kind of thing. And that's massively important, right? But you always knew, lurking in the background, was what this meeting was really all about, trade and Trump's position on U.S.-Canada trade, especially vis-a-vis the auto industry. If Carney needed to say to Trump's face, Canada's not for sale, which he did, Trump needed to say to Carney's face, I want cars built in America. And so in that clip, while Trump began with friendly stuff, not like that blow-up we had with someone else, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, he ended with, P.S. I want cars built in America. Mark Carney said going into this that it would be a difficult conversation, and that is why it is difficult and why it will be difficult, even though it was all framed by niceties.
I mean, obviously the tone matters, as you suggest there, Paul, but results clearly matter more. Catherine, any indication, anything tangible was achieved here?
We don't really know yet, Adrian. Mark Carney said more conversations to come. And it's true that Carney didn't experience a big blow-up. He's getting some warm words. But I thought it was interesting. He pulled almost a sort of reverse Justin Trudeau here. Trudeau liked big announcements. He was criticized for not always following through with them. Carney came out and basically said, OK, talks continue. I told you there wouldn't be white smoke. So pushing down expectations, but can he deliver results in the coming weeks? If you're an auto worker, or you work in the steel or aluminum industry, even the film industry, which was threatened this week, it's not clear how much of a difference today made. Now, no one could reasonably expect this trade war to be resolved with the snap of your fingers, but significant weight still rests on Mark Carney's shoulders. One Canadian business leader said today he was encouraged by this first meeting, but on trade, this uncertainty cannot last.
Paul, just back to the clip you picked, right? And this obvious reference to Zelensky that we've talked about. We've seen a few of these meetings play out. They can ultimately really be telling.
Yeah, I mean, in a number of ways, right? Not least in the different approaches national leaders take with Donald Trump. Zelensky being one path, Britain's Keir Starmer being maybe at the other end of the spectrum, right down to pulling out that invite from the King for a visit to Buckingham Palace. Carney seems to have recognized the value of what you might call the forceful middle ground. Be respectful, don't insult, but lay out your positions firmly. Carney had two audiences, the guy sitting right next to him, but also the millions of Canadians at home who voted for someone to get those elbows up without exploding everything. Zelensky left with nothing. Carney had a lengthy working lunch after the Oval sit-down and the start of a process, we presume, to move things forward. I think it's fair to call that a win.
Okay. And so, Catherine, at this point, what is the next big moment you think we should be watching for from Mark Carney?
Adrian, he's got so much on his agenda. Restarting Parliament, a throne speech given by the King. There are other things that are important but less public-facing, like choosing his staff. But in terms of what's next, he has a virtual meeting with the premiers tomorrow at a time when Alberta's premier has been beating the drum of discontent, even estrangement from the rest of Canada. And then next week, he's going to unveil his cabinet, the people who will both help him navigate this trade war and try to fulfill his domestic agenda, a tax cut, growing the housing supply, and as Carney puts it, making Canada the world's leading energy superpower.
And Paul, just one very quick last thought to you. After all of this, Trump also called the meeting great. Is that a good thing?
Truth? You never know. You can read into it that the relationship is already better than it was with Justin Trudeau, let's say. You can read into it that Trump could have said terrible things, and yet he chose not to. I think if you'd asked Mark Carney beforehand if he'd be all good with Trump saying that it was great, I suspect he'd say, I'll take that, despite the many challenges that still lay ahead.
Indeed. All right, Paul Hunter, Catherine Cullen, thank you both, as always.
Thank you.
A BC pilot's close call in the waters off Mexico.
Suddenly, the engine went absolutely silent, and I realized we've got a serious problem.
How we got through it unscathed. Next in our moment. So that's Michael McDonald on the right. He's a pilot from Burnaby, BC, who spent months flying over the waters off the coast of Mexico looking for marine life. That is until a few weeks ago. That is when a sudden engine failure sent his plane crashing down. Tonight, the terrifying close call that followed makes our moment.
As we were flying along at 1,500 feet, suddenly the engine went absolutely silent. And I realized we've got a serious problem. There was no real panic. It was just, this is the circumstance. We have to give up on this and we have to start preparing for ditching. It's time to get our life jackets open. And I pulled the tab and nothing happened. To unfurl the entire thing and eventually found that little red tube and popped the cap off and breathed into it. But because I've been bagpiping since, 13 years old, I got a fairly good set of lungs and inflated it quite rapidly.
Waiting to get rescued. Let's see. Might be a while.
Just started swimming, keep my mind occupied, focus on a task. At about the 2 hour and 20 minute mark, and I noticed the boat was about 2 miles away. But yeah, extreme relief when we saw that. I was like, oh, okay, we're almost done here. We've made it. It's something in my life that I'll remember forever, and be able to tell my great-grandchildren if I'm so lucky that I lived that long.
So this is an amazing story. He said, by the way, his job was to fly low over the water with a marine biologist to keep an eye on marine life, not get quite that close. And he's a very good sport. His family are definitely good sports because they welcomed him home with a cake that said, "Welcome back, shark bait." From all of us at the National here in Rome and back at home, thank you for being with us. We'll be here again at the Vatican tomorrow as the Conclave begins. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.